All right, so since we got the reveal in chapter 1069 that Lucci had awakened his leopard fruit, a big question in the community that we've had since then is like, wait, was Kaido awakened? Because that was something that we were like questioning throughout most of his like final round of fight with Luffy, especially after Luffy awakened his fruit and it was made
Oh
apparent.
yeah.
And now that we have this dialogue box straight up telling us that like this is an awakened form for Lucci, we never got that with Kaido. Um, so it's like before I go into what all of the evidence to support that Kaido is, but also evidence to support that he's not, which I'm sure you've seen most of it.
Oh yeah.
What do you think that Kaido was awakened?
No. I do not think he's awakened. So here's the thing. There's two main arguments that people use to say that Kaido is awakened. The first one is that he has the fish fruit model Seryu and that he started as a fish and then became a dragon. That is complete heresy. If that was true, then Momo was also awakened, which can't be the case since we saw him eat the fruit and immediately turn into a dragon. The fish model is just a classification. Seryu, Azure Dragon, it's a water dragon. And that's why it has the fish connotation. As far as the next argument that I've seen people say is that he, or at least Oda, doesn't have to explicitly say when users are awakened. They're like, oh, can't you appreciate the nuance? Like, Oda is just making him awakened. He doesn't have to say it. Why would he say it? But here's the thing. Every single awakened user in the series has been stated to be awakened. Doflamingo, Katakuri, the impelled down jailers, Luffy, Lucci, everyone who is awakened in One Piece, Oda has explicitly said they are awakened. So if Kaido was awakened, I feel like he wouldn't be the one exception out of like 10 different characters that all of a sudden they just wouldn't say it. The best thing that people can say for Kaido being awakened, in my opinion, would be the change in his teeth. So his hybrid form, he had like very square, jagged looking or square looking teeth. And then eventually when he starts getting drunk, they turn more and more sharp. But I mean, at the same time, that's kind of just like aspects of a dragon. So I don't even know if I'd consider that like a awakening. And then with this chapter, we see that Lucci has this black cloud around him. So like maybe the cloud is what symbolizes an awakened Zoan user. That's kind of what I'm leaning towards, since Luffy also has that as well. But we just don't know for sure. But I feel like there's more evidence to Kaido not being awakened than being awakened.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem that way. More evidence to support that he's not awakened, especially since he didn't get the dialogue box. Um, and yeah, when you say that he does change aesthetic while in hybrid form, he does. I mean, he has like the more humanoid teeth with the fangs, and then it eventually just becomes like all fangs. And his nose changes, and his eyebrows change. His eyebrows actually take on the aesthetic of like the cloud stuff that we see from Lucci and Luffy.
Yeah.
But that's still not enough. Although it is interesting that Oda chose to do that, how they're just so different. And he does seem to be bigger in a stature wise, kind of like how the impelled down jailers were. And that's another thing that always kind of bothered me about it. It's like if the impelled down guys were awakened, then why the hell isn't Kaido?
I mean, at the same time though, the impelled down jailers, they were really goofy. Like they had no mind of their own. They were just kind of bumbling around fighting people. Like I'd almost say
Exactly.
like they're incomplete awakenings, right? Kind of like a
Okay.
false Super Saiyan.
I'm glad you brought that up because I think that's a thing here. Because in chapter 1069, right before Lucci's panel for his awakenings revealed, Shaka says that it's usually the case that awakened Zoan powers absorb and control the user's personality.
Yeah.
So, I mean, clearly that's what happened with the impelled down jailers, but it's like, did that necessarily happen with Kaido? And if you're going back to like the incomplete awakening or partial awakening, Kaido also says, to Luffy, awakening is what happens when the user's mind and body catches up.
So the thing with Kaido is that I guess you could argue that Kaido still being a classic drunk is showing that his personality is shining through the awakening. But I mean, even with Luffy, like his awakening kind of takes over his mind, doesn't it? Like he just starts laughing all the time. Like it's almost like an uncontrollable laughter, like he just ate a smile fruit or something. Like Luffy in Gear 5th form isn't like, I mean, he is Luffy, but he's like a funnier Luffy.
Yeah,
so, Kaido hasn't shown any signs of that.
No, he hasn't. And that's, I think, what Oda was trying to get across to us in one of those first chapters after Luffy awakened, because people are like, oh, is he Nika now? Is he a different person?
Yeah.
And it was like, no, I'm still Luffy. I'm just goofy now, and I'm weird. And it's like, okay. So, I mean, I don't want to go too deep into that stuff, because sometimes, like, we, the hardcore fandom, like, build this whole other lore, and we accept it as canon, and then it turns out that Oda didn't want that, wasn't even thinking about it, or just mangas in general. But it is possible that there is like this true awakening, semi-awakening thing. I guess there kind of has to be, right? Unless all the awakenings of the devil fruits aren't created equal and they all don't get these flame things around them. Because also Yamato had that.
Yeah.
And it's like, is she awakened?
That's an interesting one, because Yamato wasn't ever explicitly said either. And we never thought that Yamato was awakened. I don't think there was really anybody that was arguing that Yamato was awakened until just recently with this chapter.
Yeah, exactly.
So now it brings back Yamato into play. And the thing with Yamato's fruit is, like, we don't really know what her fruit is supposed to look like in real life. We don't have any references, right? Like, we can't just, like, open a picture book and say, ah, yes, this is when my grandpa saw this creature in the woods. And it looks just like Yamato. Like, we don't know if this Zoan form of hers always had clouds or only had clouds because she awakened. Like, Kaido's a good example, too, because he has clouds, but those are the flame clouds around his arms and legs, and Momo has those, too, so yeah, I don't know if those would count.
Yeah, and I also said it before that this is possibly just a design that Oda likes to use, and it doesn't necessarily indicate an awakening. I don't know.
Looking deep into it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it. I would believe both. I would believe that it does, but also that he was just like, oh, I just like this design. It doesn't really mean much. Because with Luffy, it made sense, right? Because it was like the Sun Wukong type of aesthetic going on. But with everybody else having it, it's like, okay, maybe this is something with the devil fruits.
Especially Lucci. Because, like, leopards don't have that, let me tell you. I've been to the zoo once or twice, and the leopards don't have this.
So, Kaido, it's just like, I can't say for sure that he is or isn't. Like, it's so difficult to say because he's so powerful. Like,
he has room to grow. I mean, that's kind of a good thing, right? Like, if he wasn't awakened, it just shows that this man was an actual menace. A Yonko, a grand fleet beside him, taking on Gear 5th Luffy, oppressing an entire country for years, and the man wasn't even awakened yet. Yeah. Like, it's like Super Saiyan, right? Like, he could just keep on going above and beyond. That's Kaido, essentially. Like, I don't even think it's a diss to say he's not awakened. And people are bringing up the fact that he wants to, like, you know, how he wants to constantly off himself. That's kind of like his whole personality. Like, maybe that's the reason why. Like, because Luffy had to die and then get awakened. Maybe Kaido is the same way. Maybe, like, after he gets out of the lava, he's like, oh, look at this. Look what I can do. He has, like, clouds around him finally.
Wow.
And then he starts being thankful to Luffy, like, oh, you finally did it, my man. Somebody finally beat me and I'm awakened.
I mean, it is
that's
possible.
that's kind of a fanfic too, though. But
I mean, most of this is. But
yeah, One Piece is.
Yeah, but it's like, is that why his mind hasn't caught up to his body yet? Because if anything, his body has definitely caught up to the power of the fruit or whatever to be awakened. But I guess his mind didn't. And him acting and behaving the way that he did in the series was maybe indicative of that. And yeah, maybe him getting killed by Luffy is what pushes him. But that means that Kaido's still alive. And
yeah. I mean, I just feel like it's too early for him to be gone. And I always reference back the fact that Oda, he originally had a concept where Kaido and Yamato would talk at some point about, like, leaving Wano. But that never happened. And that could have just been absolute retconned because that was so long ago.
Yeah.
But I mean, if Kaido was still alive and, maybe sleeping in a volcano right now, I mean, maybe we could get that. Maybe we could get Kaido saying, "Hey, Yamato, what are you gonna do after? What are you gonna do now that like Wano's like free?" I don't know. I just don't. I can't imagine that Kaido, even if he were still alive, he would go back to Wano and try to oppress them again. I feel like it's kind of like one and done. It's like
yeah.
Crocodile, right? Like Crocodile tried, he lost. He's not going back to Alabasta killing everybody.
No.
Kind of how it is. It's typical shonen stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, but I guess now it makes sense more that we talked about it, that he's not awakened. That it's more so just the dialogue box for me, that he never got it. But
do you recall off the top of your head when they were fighting Kaido and he was turning into the different stages of drunk? Didn't he have like a dialogue box at the bottom of each one of those transformations?
Yeah, it said like when he got all
like loving drunk and
it was like beggared form or something.
Yeah, okay. And none of them said like if Oda wanted to, he could have just slipped the word, right? Like just put awakening
form.
Yeah.
No, I don't remember.
Loving drunk.
Yeah. No, I don't. No, he never got anything like that. More so just beggared form or anything. So,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's really it. It's just he's probably not awakened, but he could be.
He could be. It wouldn't ruin the story one way or another.
No.
And this could definitely be something that Oda brings up in an SBS, right? Like some random askers, like, "Hey, Oda, was Kaido awakened?" And then Oda just says, "Yeah." And that's it. Like, on to the next question.
Yeah, he's either like, yeah, or he gives you a paragraph of a non-answer.
Yeah, he's like, "Well, let me tell you, I once ate takoyaki in a street in Nagoya, and it reminded me of Kaido."
Yeah, and then that's when I
something
decided.
random. I love the SBSs.
Exactly.